Sophia saw all sorts of amazing things. She flew past swirling galaxies, shimmering nebulae, and twinkling stars. She saw planets of all shapes and sizes, some with vibrant atmospheres and others with barren landscapes. But the most exciting thing was a beautiful and colorful planet full of green plants. She landed on the planet and met a friendly alien species that lived there. They showed her around their world, introducing her to all sorts of strange and wonderful creatures. She flew through the air with the aliens, swam in the crystal-clear oceans, and climbed to the highest peaks. She even flew to their moon and back, her heart racing with excitement. A feeling of pride and accomplishment unlike anything she had ever known grasped her heart. She was living her dream, exploring the cosmos and discovering all the wonders it had to offer. She knew that this was only the beginning, and that there was so much more out there waiting for her to discover. As she flew, Sophia couldn't help but think of her granny, who had always encouraged her to follow her dreams and never give up. She remembered the countless times Granny had told her that she could be anything she wanted to be, that she just needed to believe in herself. And now, as Sophia flew through space, she realized that Granny had been right all along. She had reached her dream, and it was everything she had ever hoped it would be. Sophia knew that she would always be with her, no matter how far she flew. Just as Sophia's dream was at its most wonderful, she heard her mother's voice calling her name. "Sophia, wake up." Sophia opened her eyes to find herself back in the car, her nose still pressed against the window. She sighed wistfully, already missing the adventures of her dream. As she looked around, Sophia realized that they had arrived at the hospital. She remembered that her granny was very ill and that they were coming to visit her. Next morning, Sophia was waking up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and warm toast. She padded her way to the kitchen, where she found her grandfather sitting at the breakfast table, reading the newspaper. Sophia's eyes were immediately drawn to a picture of several adorable animals on the front page. "Grandpa, can you read me what it says about the animals?" Sophia asked eagerly. Her grandfather smiled and began to read the article aloud. It was about the local animal shelter, which had recently received a large influx of animals looking for new homes after the holiday season. Sophia's heart raced at the thought of having a pet of her own. As she made her way to school, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about the animals at the shelter. She daydreamed about all the different kinds of pets she could have, from fluffy cats to energetic dogs. Finally, the school day ended and Sophia rushed home to tell her mother about the animal shelter. She begged her mother to take her to see the animals, and after some thought, her mother agreed. The next day, Sophia, her mother, and her grandfather headed to the animal shelter together. There, they saw all sorts of animals, fluffy cats, wagging dogs, even a few rabbits and guinea pigs. Sophia was thrilled by all the adorable creatures, but none of them caught her eye quite like the small glass cage at the end of the row. "Please don't pet. Please don't touch," read a sign on the cage. Sophia's mother encouraged her to keep looking for animals and not an empty cage, but Sophia was drawn to this particular cage. She waited patiently, peering inside. Suddenly, she saw a small, dark brown ball with white speckles peek out from a wooden tube. It was a hamster. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was the cutest hamster she had ever seen. When the hamster saw Sophia, it let out a loud hiss and quickly crawled back into its tube. Sophia ran over to her mother and grandfather, telling them excitedly that she wanted this very animal. The adults were a bit puzzled, as there didn't seem to be any animal in the cage. But Sophia was determined, and together they approached the animal shelter management to make their request. After some discussion, the shelter management agreed to let Sophia take the hamster home. They even provided everything Sophia and her family would need: a glass terrarium filled with bedding, a sand bath, a large running wheel, and a multi-chamber hamster house. They also gave Sophia a bag of food, including fresh herbs and seeds from the shelter's garden. Sophia was overjoyed as she and her family set up the cage in her bedroom, placing it under the window so that her new hamster could look outside. She couldn't wait to get to know her little hamster and give it a name. As she fell asleep that night, Sophia had a very strange dream. In her dream, Sophia watched in amazement as her little hamster set to work building a rocket. With a determined glint in his eye, he worked tirelessly, gathering materials from all around his cage and using his clever little paws to put them all together. Sophia couldn't believe how resourceful her hamster was. He used sticks and twigs from his hamster house as the frame of the rocket, and lined the inside with soft blankets and pillows for a comfortable ride. He even managed to rig up a small control panel using a toy computer keyboard and some buttons from a board game. As the rocket took shape, Sophia couldn't wait to see what her hamster would do next. While she was watching him work, her hamster looked up at her with a mischievous twinkle in his eye and gave her a nod. Sophia knew exactly what that meant. It was time for the rocket's maiden voyage. Excitement coursed through Sophia's veins when she watched him climb aboard his rocket and begin the countdown. She held her breath as the engines roared to life, and soon the little hamster was soaring through the air, leaving the comfort and safety of his cage behind. The rocket flew higher and higher, and Sophia watched in awe at the moment her little fluffy ball soared past the clouds and into the vast expanse of space. She couldn't believe that her little hamster was actually going to the moon. And then the final moment came. The rocket landed on the lunar surface. Her hamster stepped out and marveled at the strange and wondrous sights before him. He saw craters and mountains. He spent hours exploring the moon, marveling at the incredible sights and sounds around him. And when it was time to head back home, he climbed back into his rocket with a sense of accomplishment and pride. Realizing that the rocket soared back to Earth, Sophia watched in delight as her little hamster returned safely to his cage. She was overjoyed to have him back and couldn't wait to hear all about his amazing adventure on the moon. Just when the sun rose the next morning, Sophia woke up feeling refreshed and ready to start a new day. She immediately sprang out of bed and rushed over to her hamster's cage to check on him. To her surprise, she found the little hamster sleeping peacefully in his sand bath. But as Sophia looked around the cage, she noticed something strange. The window was open and there was black soot all around the window frame. Sophia's mind raced. She tried to make sense of what had happened. Could it be that her hamster had really built a rocket and flown to the moon, just like in her dream? Imagining her hamster's adventures on the moon, Sophia was filled with excitement. She couldn't wait to share her story with her mother and grandfather. The day went on and Sophia spent every moment she could with her little hamster, whom she had decided to name Apollo, after the NASA program that sent the first humans to the moon. She was overjoyed to have a pet of her own, and was grateful to the animal shelter for providing her with the opportunity to give a loving home to such a special animal. While she played with Apollo and watched him explore his new home, Sophia couldn't help but think about all the other animals at the shelter waiting for their own loving homes. She made a mental note to tell all her friends and family about the wonderful work the animal shelter was doing and encourage them to adopt a pet of their own. Sophia knew that she was the luckiest girl in the world to have a hamster as special as Apollo, and she couldn't wait to see what adventures the two of them would have together in the future.